In Chile this Sunday, citizens head to the polls to elect the successor to President Gabriel Boric, as well as choosing deputies at the national level and senators in 7 regions of the country. The People's Summit concluded in Brazil with the delivery of its final declaration to COP30 presidency. And the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, has denounced Israel for limiting the entry of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip, which is exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Polls have opened in Chile this Sunday as citizens vote to elect the successor to President Gabriel Boric, as well as choosing deputies at the national level and senators in 7 regions of the country. More than 15 million citizens are eligible to elect Boric's successor for the 2026-2030 term. For this, polling stations open at 8 a.m. local time and will close at 6 p.m., provided there are no voters waiting to cast their ballots. It will not be until the evening when the first official results are shared. 8 candidates are competing for the presidency, with a member of the Communist Party and also candidate of the ruling left-wing coalition, Janet Jara, leading intention polls. If no presidential candidate obtains more than 50% of the valid votes cast this Sunday, a second round of elections will be held on December 14th. Also, parliamentary elections are underway to renew all 155 seats in the chamber of deputies and elect senators in several regions as well. And Chilean President Gabriel Boric, in this context, casts his vote on Sunday morning in the 2025 general election that will determine his successor. Well, the left-wing leader has avoided speaking directly about what will happen to his administration in a potential runoff election. In statements to the press on Sunday, he reiterated that Chile is a beautiful and exemplary country and assured he's proud of the democratic day, thus responding to the negative tone used by opposition candidates to criticize the government. Moreover, Boric used the occasion to encourage citizen participation. Now we go to Ecuador, that is also holding a referendum and popular consultation that include sensitive aspects for national politics and security. In this context, we invite Dr. Yvonne Tellez, international politics expert. Hi Yvonne, thank you for joining us today.
Hello Alejandra, happy to be here.
Yvonne, to begin, how would you describe the political and social environment in which this referendum is taking place today?
Well, Ecuador is highly divided, mainly due to the polarization that the same government has been carrying out, because since President Noboa has been in charge, one of the main characteristics is to exert a kind of a division between those in favor and those against. And in that context, what the government has done is try to convince the population that those against his ideas or his initiatives are against democracy, against security, and against the values that he's withstanding. So it's a highly polarized, but also a highly misinformed population, a highly misinformed group of people that do not know very well what's the agenda, the current agenda, because everything has been wrapped in a sense of a propaganda, but not in a real political agenda or a real political program that is managing the state. So this is what we find, that this is what we can see in the streets uh, there's a divided opinions between those yes and no against the today's poll in Ecuador. So I think that's the environment. I also have found, and this is based on research, academic research, that the most of the high ages of the population, I'm talking about people 40 years old and above, are more critical of the government. Those are alleging for and promoting the no vote. Before, the most youngest people and the youngest part of the population, who are the most misinformed, and those are I think are the most available for the government propaganda, and those are the ones that have fallen into this discourse of the yes, of the security, of the military bases, and all these things that are being decided today.
And Ivan, speaking about the content of this process, one of the most controversial points is the possibility of allowing foreign military bases in Ecuador. On your opinion, what concerns are rising about sovereignty, regional geopolitics, and democracy regarding this specific aspect?
Well, I think this question is one of the most sensitive, in fact, because as you're saying, it's not only a sovereign decision. We're not talking just about the interest of Ecuador, but geopolitical interests that are being carried out, that are at stake here. I think in that sense, there seems to be kind of a moderate position, because under these polls or these studies that were being held before today's election, most of the people tended to say no and tended to show that they were going to vote against this one. What is at stake? Well, of course, sovereignty, because that means that due to also the closeness that Ecuador and the United States have right now, but also, of course, the fact that the Ecuador can be an autonomous country regarding issues that deal with its security concerns. The other thing is that, of course, we all know that this is not a legitimate interest of favoring Ecuadorians and favoring their security, but on the other sense, what is being held here is a very strong geopolitical interest to get into the Indo-Pacific Ocean and to kind of restrain China's hegemonic pressure and hegemonic not just pressure, but just standing here in the Pacific. So, of course, this goes under the geopolitical interest of the United States, how it is trying to recover its hegemonic power within the Latin America and within the oceans, and especially the Pacific Ocean. What I think is that people are getting or being aware of this, because there has been a very strong campaign towards the no, towards explaining what is behind those interests. Also because what we've seen historically, and that's also a fact, for example, in Colombia, military bases in our countries do not represent anything. I mean, do not constrain drug dealing. Also, they do not represent any winnings regarding the drug dealing politics. So it is there's something behind that doesn't deal and doesn't mean anything getting better with its presence. So, and the last thing that I want to take into account is that this is prohibited under the Constitution of Ecuador. So, of course, this is what's being decided today, because the idea of stating military bases in Ecuador, again, has to go under a constitutional reform. And that's what's being decided. That's what the government is trying to do, because this is a prohibition under the constitution.
Also, another of the aspects of this consultation is the elimination of state funds for political parties. How could this damage small parties and social movements in the country, and also representativeness in the country?
Well, there's, of course, I think it's a demand for a technocratic state and a demand for a minimization of the state. We understand that there have been strong demands of reforming those institutions that sometimes have fallen into corrupt conducts. But, however, reducing the size of the institutions of the state and reforming, for example, the size of the funds that go for the political parties, that means that tends to weaken representation, particularly minorities and rural sectors. It also increases the dominance of the executive, that's already a chronic problem in Ecuador. And that risks pushing parties toward private and also to opaque funding streams, opaque funding systems. So even if these measures try to show a little popular support, what they reflect in reality is a technocratic desire to shrink politics. And that, of course, in the long term, would mean the reduction of accountability.
One last question, Yvonne. In general terms, if this consultation is approved as it is proposed, what would be the implications in terms of human rights for Ecuadorians?
Well, I think that's one of the main concerns. It is indeed, because what we've seen is that those measures proposed all tend to weaken the human rights regime, tend to weaken the safeguards and the guarantees that the Constitution offers towards citizens and towards specific groups. There's a high risk of what could happen. We do not know the scenario, but definitely it is a reality that those measures, all of them, and for who are listening to us, excuse me, who are listening to us at the moment, that means that all of them tend to weaken and to restrain and to reduce the safeguards, the human rights safeguards. So that's a high risk. That's a high risk because there's a issue of sovereignty. There's an issue of the shrinking of the state, and that means that in that sense, all the institutional guarantees that are proposed and that have been at stake in the Constitution, and that also have been weakened by the current government that we have, tend to lessen the human rights guarantees, the human rights regime. So it is a high risk for the Ecuadorians. We hope that those measures do not do not pass. Because there's a big sector of society that is worried about the outcome. That will mean also that the executive will gain more power, and without guarantee, without constitutional safeguards, that means the risk of abuse and the risk of a growing authoritarianism.
Thank you very much, Yvonne, for joining us today in this crucial moment for Ecuadorians.
Thank you very much.
We are speaking to Dr. Iván Telles, international politics expert, in the context of Ecuador's referendum and popular consultation underway in Ecuador today. And now, after this special interview, we have a short break coming up. But first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. We go to Brazil on its final day, the People's Summit, which took place in parallel with the first week of United Nations Climate Conference COP30, concluded with the delivery of its final declaration. Over 1,100 organizations from around the world participated in this global gathering, which brought together thousands of activists from all continents in the city of Belem do Pará. The event aimed to pressure global leaders and negotiators present in Brazil to adopt effective actions in the face of the climate emergency, which participants argued is largely the responsibility of major transnational corporations. Among the main demands of the summit, social movements emphasized the need to guarantee the active participation of indigenous peoples in decision-making. We go to Cuba. The island received 30 tons of food from China to assist victims of Hurricane Melissa in the eastern region of the island. The supplies will be distributed in the areas most affected by the natural disaster, which, although it did not cause any fatalities, left hundreds of homes completely destroyed in its wake. During the reception, China stated that the government and people of China expressed their deep solidarity with the victims. In addition to the 6 flights carrying food, Cuba will receive 3 maritime shipments with essential basic supplies, which will arrive at the port of Santiago de Cuba. In other topics, in Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro denounced the government of Trinidad and Tobago for its submissiveness to the United States and its staunch support for its crimes in the Caribbean. The Venezuelan leader rejected the actions of the government of Port of Spain, which authorized the Trump administration to conduct military exercises off the coast of Venezuela. The head of state described the maneuvers as irresponsible and emphasized that they represent a threat to peace in the Caribbean. President Maduro expressed his rejection of the imperialist policies of the U.S. government, which seek to impose a puppet regime in Venezuela in order to steal all its natural resources and undermine peace throughout Latin America.
The government of Trinidad and Tobago has once again announced irresponsible exercises, lending its waters off the coast of the state of Sucre for military exercises intended to be threatening to a republic like Venezuela, which will not be threatened by anyone. They say they will do this from Monday to Thursday. Well, the people of Trinidad and Tobago will see if they continue to endure the use of its waters and its lands to seriously threaten the Caribbean peace. I am only calling, once again, to all the people of the eastern states, from the south of Bolívar, of the Tamacuro, Monagas, Sucre, Anzoátegui, Nueva Esparta, in perfect popular military policial fusion, to establish a vigil and a permanent march in the streets with the flag of Venezuela held high. The Great Vigil and the Great March of the Flags, I am calling it here from Caracas.
We go now to Honduras. The government welcomed the reduction of U.S. tariffs on agricultural products. The measure reduces export taxes on products such as coffee, meat, cocoa, tomatoes, and bananas, and also eliminates the application of reciprocal tariffs that ranged from 10 to 50%. In this regard, the Honduran Foreign Ministry emphasized that Washington's decision represents new employment opportunities for Honduran producers. Also, the products are not entirely tax exempt. This adjustment establishes lower import rates and eases cost pressures in some commercial sectors. Also in Mexico, at least 60 police officers were injured after riots caused by far-right extremists in the capital's Zócalo. The self-titled March of Generation Z traveled through the Mexican capital to the vicinity of the National Executive Headquarters, where several participants threw objects, destroyed public furniture, and in some places broke down the security fence set up by police forces. In this regard, sectors have denounced that the protest, which was called under the pretext of denouncing insecurity, has received funding from national and international ultra-conservative groups. In this sense, political and social youth movements have distanced themselves from the mobilization, asserting that its objective is to destabilize the country. Let's talk about Palestine. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, has denounced Israel for limiting the entry of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip, which is exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. The United Nations agency warned that the restrictions imposed by Israel are intensifying the crisis due to the lack of food and medicine. It also warned that most of the population consumes contaminated water, causing outbreaks of hepatitis, meningitis, intestinal and respiratory diseases, as well as increasing kidney failure and cancer. In this regard, the organization condemned the obstacles placed by Israeli forces to providing assistance to Palestinians, emphasizing that the humanitarian aid received is not sufficient to alleviate the crisis in the territory. And other information, in France, 2 major television networks went off the air due to a bomb threat that led to evacuations and police deployment. An individual called a police station claiming that he had placed an explosive device in the building of the media company, where the television networks BFMT, MTV, and RMC are based, and threatened to blow up the place. In this context, police rushed to the scene, evacuated the staff, and conducted several inspections, but found no bomb. The authorities stated that if the person responsible for the message is found, they could face up to 2 years in prison and a heavy fine. Let's recall that this threat came 2 days after France commemorated the attacks of November 13, 2015, in which 132 people were killed. According to the Minister of the Interior, 6 terrorist attacks have been thwarted in the country so far in 2025. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.